Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before I do, I got to rant on something because I made the dumb mistake of reading Twitter before I got on here. In this case in point, the fallacy and idea of gradual desensitization. Why does this not work with autistics and otherwise neurodivergent folk? As an aging autistic, allow me to explain it to you. There is no desensitizing or lessening of sensory pain. Okay? They tried that desensitizing on me. Did it make it to where I would be able to endure it if I absolutely have to? Sure it did, but in no way, shape, or form made me in any way more willing to go out into public. It's kind of hard as a neurodivergent to explain to you just how horrific sensory pain can be. Like 1,000 needles being shoved into your head with no numbing immediately, while simultaneously having a crash so loud that you go temporarily deaf and have a ringing in your ears. On top of feeling like an anvil just slammed full force onto the top of your head. What I just described right there is a pretty poor description of what I feel when dealing with my sound sensory issues. That is as close to a description as I'm going to get as to the pain that I go through when I deal with sudden sharp sounds. Pots falling on tile or wooden floors being one of the major ones. The slamming of pots and pans. It also has to do with high frequency beepies. I call them the beepies. This is coming back from, Taco Bell, McDonald's days. That incessant beep. Ugh. Now, what are the other sensory issues that are common in a public high school? Make you willing to go to public high school. First off, before the sensories, we're target number one in the majority of public schools for an immense amount of bullying. Bullying that used to get left behind as soon as you left school has now chased the kid home and onto their social media. So, there's that. And the multitude of sensory sights and sounds in a public high school. The pain of just simply hearing all the slams and all the drops while going through your lunch line. The fact that I have sensitive hearing so acute that I can hear and be slowly driven insane by the sound of fluorescent lighting. The horrifically bad, bright colors that elementary schools seem to be just broadly painted in. That kind of pain made me feel like my eyes were burning. It also gave me a sense of agitation and stress. What about the incessant, never-ending white noise of thousands of voices surrounding you constantly? Yeah. Let's move on to sensory issues, considering what you all try to put us in when we go to school. The worst for me was wool clothing. Wool clothing is basically like you might as well just dunk me in lava, because that's what it feels like, and has caused me on multiple occasions to not only bust out in hives, but even when the clothing has been removed, those hives will linger for weeks. Weeks. I used to have, on top of what I have already described, absolute debilitating stomach aches. Horrible, horrible stomach aches that would last me the entirety of the whole day in public school. Okay? The only time that I found any relief at all was when I was with my band / choir / music teacher. Gotta love being in small towns, please kill me. With my favorite teacher that I ever had, Mr. Akers. That was the only time that I found any kind of safe space or any kind of peace in the entirety of a long 8-hour day. There is no desensitizing us to sensory issues, folks. That's a pipe dream. We can sit there, stand there, and force ourselves to endure it, but the longer that we do, the more intense and prolonged the pain is afterwards and during. We gotta stop this insanity. It is all a part of this insane idea of forcing us to be more normal. It's this idea of if we just will it hard enough, without thinking about the damage that you're doing to your kid. Okay? They're such small, I say even ridiculously cheap things that you can do and use as reasonable accommodations and assistive devices that when your kid is in public school makes their life a little bit less hellish. Noise canceling headphones. In fact, these days they've got it down to where they can literally put them inside your ears and it looks like iPod headphones. You know? Barely even noticeable, especially now in our day and age. Sorry about the glare behind me. Such small things that we can do, reasonable accommodations that can be made, and we still fall back on this very old system of doing things that has already traumatized one generation after another of neurodivergent people. We're all about progress, unless it comes to medical treatment for people who are neurodivergent. This is why the medical model and treatment programs and places that use them need to start putting their egos aside. Because insisting on the older way of doing things is just going to bring the traumatization of the other generation coming up behind us. And another generation of parents wondering why their kids burned out at 30. Alright? Now to the disclaimers. In the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much, they have threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also included the Ozarks' first article in regards to Agape Boarding School, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor, still on the premises with full access to the boys, up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault with the boys there. You got an attorney general too busy chasing after drag queens and trying and failing to defund public libraries to actually do his job. And you got a governor office nut. So send help. Read that article. Share it on all your social media. We got the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign as well, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masamba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org shut the Judge Rotenberg Center down petition. Trigger warning: when we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, folks, use your headphones, alright? Second trigger warning: this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is very much advised, alright? Alright, third trigger warning. The article that we are reading was written for the New England Law Review back in the summer of 1988. It is heavily on the side of aversive therapy and heavily on the side of JRC and the concepts of making us normal by whatever means necessary, no matter what price the person who's actually disabled has to pay. You're going to be triggered. I've already been triggered, so be prepared for that. But before we get into it, I wanted to speak a little bit more on sensory because it can be a little bit of an interesting subject. You heard me describe some of the things that I go to: sudden sharp noises, loud bright pastel colors, clothing. But I don't want to discuss what the smell of pudding does to me, but just suffice it to say you don't want to know. But what's interesting is you would think then that would mean I couldn't handle loud music or other loud sounds. I'm a metalhead. I've been a metalhead since I was 10. Thank you, Brother Mike. And Mom pumped Alice Cooper and Black Sabbath into my crib. I love loud music. I play my music loud. Loud music doesn't bother me. Not even background noise bothers me to an extent. But it's the type of background noise. The white noise of 1,000 teenagers in public school was hell. However, I could have a TV playing a documentary while filming this. Although that would affect some of us sensory-wise, it wouldn't affect me. I would still be able to focus and continue on with the conversation. This is why treatment programs should cater to the individual, not archaic ideas that has traumatized generation after generation after generation of us. Talking to your consumer should be priority number uno. Now, I don't mean talking over your consumer and speaking with their parent. I mean speaking to them. My mom could have told you that I had sensory issues as a kid. What she couldn't tell you is exactly how they affected me. Okay? Talk to your consumer. Because when you talk to your consumer, then you can come up with actual real solutions that will actually make it a little bit less hellish for us to endure public school. Because where noise canceling headphones may be needed for one and not for another, maybe a different accommodation needs to be made. Maybe a stress ball or something else sensory wise to help us calm down might be the best thing to do. Although most of us have sensory issues and sensory processing disorder, that doesn't look the same on any of us. So, just something to keep in mind, okay? Quit trying to push archaic ideas on this generation of neurodivergent folk. It didn't actually work with us. The only reason why you think it worked is because we became so goddamn good at masking that you couldn't tell that we were actually in a massive amount of pain. That isn't progress. Forcing us to mask while in incredible pain for hours on end is not really an answer. All right, now let's get to it, shall we? Application of proposal. I'm sorry if we already started going over this, but we may have to rehash a few things because I've slept since then. In upholding the family court's guardianship and substitute judgment orders in BRI, remember that used to be JRC versus Leonard, the Massachusetts Appellate Court admonished all parties to recognize that they shared a common responsibility and had the duty to go back to the lower court and work to resolve the litigation and settle this matter in the best interests of the students. Again, let me say it for the idiots in the back. If sending them to this hellhole and forcing them to endure aversive treatment is your idea of what's in the best mind for the students, you have no business being a judge. Okay? If you are a judge and you actually have case history of what happened to the young man that actually inspired the entire lawsuit that happened around circa 1986, and you still think that this is the best option for these kids, you have no business in law, period. And no, I'm not sorry. But let's read on, shall we? The team approach devised by the Judge Rothberg gave the parents the opportunity to be a part of the system by acknowledging that the family had a legitimate interest in determining treatment programs for their children. Jesus Christ. The parents, the saints, right? Parents never make bad decisions about treatment programs for their kids. Parents are perfect. Seriously. I'm sure you are actually a full advocate for parents who think it's in the best interest of their child to get a lobotomy. Because a lot of parents did that. They hid their disabled kids as a matter of shame and not wanting to bring shame on their family. I am bringing this history to you to make a very specific point. Places like this try to hold parents on a pedestal. They're one part martyr, one part saint, one part perfection. They're none of these things in truth. Families are scrambling to figure things out as best as they can from day one of diagnosis. They're doing the best they can with the information that they got. Most of the time, these parents are not given all the information. You have people inside the medical model who prey on parents' desperation. And this is how places like the JRC continue to exist and make money off of them and off of us year after year after year. That is reality. Okay? When it comes to treatment programs, not every parent in the world has the time to research it. They're going to trust their doctors. They're going to trust their schools. They're going to trust what the so-called professionals tell them to. Many of these individuals do not have it within their best interests to let parents know exactly what else is out there, where the new developments have been made. Person-centered planning became a thing starting circa mid-1990s. It was not open up on a wide scale, not just in my state or anywhere else, until the early 2000s. And if you want to talk about work that never ended, educating parents on a wide scale within the corner 25% of my state was a job that never ended. I saw the inside of more schools, more conferences than I care to remember too at this point. I just remember distinctly like maybe being able to see the inside of my apartment about 2 days a month. Okay? Let's stop with the whole, well, the family always knows best, because history does not bear that out. Families are not always given all the information that they should in regards to what is actually out there that would best suit their child. Okay? The only reason why my situation was different was because of who my mom is and the fact that she has spent her life in healthcare. Therefore, she was gonna do her homework because she knew she had to. Okay? Woman has worked both in the mental health side of things, specifically working for elder programs, elderly. And when she became a radiologist, you see where I'm going with here, right? She had that little bit of extra that most parents don't have. But let's move on. It avoided the creation of animosities that develop out of the adversarial procedure and reduced the time and cost of litigation. Yeah, let's save the state some money. Let's not care about the traumatization of kids or, when they're actually, dead. Further, it allowed parents to work with those state agencies on whom they depended to help and support of their children. Here we go again. But we gotta get funding so that our kid can continue to be abused. Because that's what aversives are. You're punishing us for how we were born. You're punishing us for being triggered without dealing with what's causing the trigger. It's like putting Band-Aid on a wound that needs stitches. In addition, the team viewed the needs of each student individually and was able to design a program suited to that particular student's needs. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. As a person who works with the state, Mr. Lawyer, I'm calling you out on your bullshit. The BRI in no capacity whatsoever in any way catered their programs to fit the student. That is a lie. The BRI used the cookie cutter method. Every single student, regardless of disability or mental health issue, goes under the same treatment program. The only thing that is actually individualized is what is used to deliberately to trigger behavior so that they can punish them. That's it. And it's the only thing that's individualized. Individualized care looks remarkably different. That is when it is catered to that specific individuals. It's catered to a full functional fucking assessment. Excuse me for cursing. That's why an actual, real, true blue, full functional assessment is 100% necessary. Because when you don't do a real full functional assessment, you can't really create a program that caters to the particular consumer in question. You're just doing cookie cutter. Okay? You're treating everyone the same. And what's even more insane is that you're doing it on completely different developmental disabilities. And even some things that aren't developmental disabilities, they're mental health issues that have really specific needs and types of therapy that they need to be receiving. And yes, lawyer, Dr. Israel, some of those mental health issues do absolutely 100% require medication. Don't even get me started on that. This school does not, in any way, shape, or form, nor does it with the lawyers and judges in any way produce a program that caters to the consumer. At all, at all, at all. Again, do not blow smoke up my ass and tell me it's potpourri, alright? Jesus. I know I change that saying a lot. This is what happens when I get bored sometimes, folks. I come up with new weird crap to say. It gives me a weird joy. Okay. In light of the treatments were successful or were of to no avail. Again with the successful, because these people don't care what we view personally as our successes. They care about what normie world sees as successes. What normie world views as successes is when we are masking so perfectly that they cannot tell that we are not actually neurotypical. That's not success. You know what that does cause, though? Early burnout. Burnout is debilitating. I can't quite put it into words, but as I've told you all previously, I went through it when I was 16 years old. I rapidly, within a space of a day, lost all the skills that I had been employing regularly that were far more advanced than my age. The ability to make myself food. The ability to sometimes even dress myself. Basically had to re-potty train myself. That's how detrimental, how physical burnout can be. You can sit there and say, but I can't tell the difference between you and that neurotypical over there all you want to. But until you begin to understand the cost of burnout and the fact that we're hitting burnout at earlier and earlier ages every single year because we are faking being neurotypical for you, you finally begin to understand that this is not the way forward. This can, in fact, end up crippling us for the rest of our lives. And again, I am extremely lucky with the people who I have for parents and step parents that I was able to come out of autistic burnout and regain those skills. But that is only because everyone involved in some way or another have dealt with mental health. Okay? I think also part of it was because it did happen when I was 16, as opposed to if that were to happen to me now. All right? Success should not be measured with whether or not you can tell the difference between me and a neurotypical. Success should be, am I able to live independently? Am I able to live a happy and fulfilled life, whatever that looks like to me? That is what success is. Not me pretending to be neurotypical so well that I fool you in the world. My aunt used to call it my horse and pony show. But am I able to live independently when I'm not faking for the public? Am I able to live a fulfilling life doing things that interest me and make me feel fulfilled as an individual human being? What does quality of life look like to me? Do I feel like I am living my best quality of life? Not what you think it is. What do I think it is? And am I either living it or on my way to? That is what success should be considered. Just saying. The team could objectively evaluate all forms of treatment, with the primary question being, what will help this student be more in tune with his surrounding and help them achieve a higher quality of life? Again, I ask you, who gets to define quality of life? Because the medical model will try and tell you quality of life is, are you undistinguishable from your neurotypical peers? Does everything look normal on the surface? That's their idea of quality of life. That I look neurotypical and like an able person. Undistinguishable from the mobs and masses of people that surround me. You, neurotypical society, do not get to define for me, someone whose brain works in ways you can't comprehend or understand, what quality of life is. I determine that. And until the medical model can wrap until they can wrap their heads around this idea that they have no right to define for others what quality of life looks like for us, until they put aside their egos, and instead of speaking over us to our parents, they speak to us to find out what we feel a higher quality of life would be, then we're going to just keep running in circles. And we're going to close out on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. Goodbye, everyone.